Wait, is this what I think it is?
You're going to hear what you think it is, but this is the original. This is Hey Mickey.
Oh, I know it from
Right.
the Bring It On.
Yes, exactly. So this is Hey Mickey. And what this became is, I'm sure, what you know, because you can really hear that beat,
Yeah, I mean...
is this here, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is
Yeah,
one of the successes of our creative team. Spends all their time going to the leading artists of the day and saying, hey, it's so hard to create a hit. Why don't you start with a hit? And our team is proactive about making this happen without having really put up any money, and that's wildly, wildly lucrative for our investors, right?
I'm sure it generated a lot of...
Yes.
Found that B from BTS grew up with his family listening to Bing Crosby.
Right.
Actually singing. So we found this out. Our team contacted B and contacted his management. So there's a version of White Christmas that came out last year.
산업을 이끄는 이들의 시각으로 미래를 발견하는 시간 플러스 리더스입니다. 자, 오늘의 주인공은요. 밥 말리, 휘트니 휴스턴, 그리고 프린스와 같은 전설적인 아티스트들의 음악 판권을 사들이며 음악 저작권을 어엿한 투자 자산으로 만든 회사 프라이머리웨이브의 창업자 Lawrence Mestel, 그리고 IP 투자 부분을 이끄는 Bill Cisneros 두 분과 함께합니다. Hello and welcome to our show. Thanks for being on our show. Before we start, do you want to say hello to our viewers? Let's start with you.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Hello, awesome, great to be here as well.
So when I hear the phrase, you own the music, right? I think about, maybe buying a CD or, downloading or streaming music, right? So what does it mean to own the rights to music or own a catalog?
When you think about that, that's only partially right, because really what we do is we own the underlying copyright of the songs as opposed to the master recording.
Right.
I mean, and again, we do in many cases own the master recording as well, but our focus really is on owning the copyright of the song itself. Because interestingly, the copyright of the publishing trumps the master recording when it comes to marketing and exploitation.
When you first started Primaryweave, right, back 20 years ago, investing in music rights, that wasn't kind of like the mainstream asset. How did you get started with this business? What did you see?
So 20 years ago, back in 2006, when we started, there was a disconnect in the marketplace. The major music companies, Universal, Sony, or Warner, were mainly interested in developing new artists, signing new writers, signing new artists, developing that talent, breaking that talent, and they weren't giving a lot of attention in their kind of special markets divisions to the icons of the world.
The legends of the world.
The legends, right? And so we saw a vacuum in the market to come in. My history was, I ran Island Records for a while, Arista Records for a while, Virgin Records for a while. So when I started Primaryweave, I was only really influenced by the recorded music business. We applied that to the music publishing space, and it really created a new dynamic. And legendary artists having their songs become popular again and be reintroduced to a new youth culture. Build our infrastructure, build our marketing presence, our brand presence. We now have an immersive company, and we kind of surround the songs with ways to grow the music. And that's very unusual.
Right.
That's why we're now the largest owner of legendary music in the world, because artists want that partnership. And it's very hard in the music business to find that opportunity.
Okay, so what about like TikTok and social media? Because I'm hearing a lot of the older songs on TikTok making a comeback. So what kind of opportunity does that create for music IP investors?
Well, it's really an opportunity that drives consumption of the music up. And it's one of the most exciting parts of the opportunity for us, because one of the things that differentiates Primaryweave is we have 120 people. Roughly 80 of these people spend all of their time coming up with new ways of growing the income and growing the value of our songs, right? And so we have our biggest team, and within that 80-person team is the digital team. The digital team, for example, is always on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and always finding that our music is trending in some way and providing an ability for that trend to go much, much bigger in terms of scale. And every time our music is played, literally anywhere on the planet, we're collecting money.
I think it's also important to note that is a really significant difference between Primaryweave and our competition. With was describing our digital team, we have an entire division dedicated to creating content for TikTok. TikTok, in essence, is the biggest radio station and television station in the world.
That's
right?
true.
You have to be on it. And it's a very important medium now for marketing. And so we have a team that's dedicated to creating content and marketing on TikTok.
Right. So I was wondering why the musics from the 80s and the 90s were making a comeback on TikTok. I guess that's kind of your doing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is so interesting about us is we are able to bring artists that were very popular back in the day and make them popular again, right? So Stevie Nicks is a perfect example of that. If you think about her career before Praimaryweave, she was very much dependent on her legacy audience. Now she has a whole new fan base, mostly young women, that she can sell out massive concerts to. And part of that was just doing a lot of different things to make her music relevant again. That's what we do. All of these teams are always working on initiatives.
Yeah, and if you remember specifically on TikTok, there was a guy in LA who was skateboarding down the 405. There were no cars on the 405
right,
during
because
COVID.
of COVID.
He's skateboarding and he's drinking an ocean spray cranberry juice bottle while lip syncing the words to Dreams. And that one TikTok video, over 100 million views, caused a massive resurgence in Stevie Nicks and in the song Dreams. And in fact, that year, because of that one TikTok video, Dreams became the #1 streamed song in the world.
Really?
More than Dua Lipa, more than Taylor Swift, more than The Weeknd. It was a massive song in 2020.
Now with the age of AI, I feel like a lot of things are going to change drastically. So there are AI tools like Suno or Udio, right, that can generate music just like that, you know? So the big question is, what does that mean for music rights? Who owns the music?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a very complex equation. However, what I would say is most important is that most of the people that are focusing on AI are realizing that the best path to success is going to be a path that includes the existing copyright owners, whether it's the publishing or the recorded music. You know, if you steal somebody's music and make new music, if you're doing that with AI or without AI, you're probably going to have the same problem, right? Whereas if you partner, and we are actively partnering with several of these AI generators, because one of the obvious strategies that makes this a huge windfall for us is, for example, if we wanted to have a Spanish language or a Korean language version of all of our hit songs, which we've done already, except with AI, you can do this much, much more efficiently at scale. So that's a good example of why, for us, AI is going to be a tremendous, tailwind.
And I feel like as we enter this age of AI and it can generate songs like basically endlessly, I feel like the value of authentic human created catalogs back in the days, I feel like the classics. What do you think? What is your opinion?
We're betting on the fact that it's going to continue to be more valuable. Listen, it's authentic, it's unique. Look, at some point, an AI has gotten to the point where the music happens to be very good, but it's not Prince and it's not Bob Marley.
But it keeps on evolving, you know? So I feel like if you enter enough data, it could mimic the styles of the legendary artists.
True. But to your point, right, the music that touched you during your life has value. And the music that we buy has touched people's lives for decades. And that's also why it has tremendous value. And we agree with you that that music is going to continue to go up in value. And we also believe that there are other types of music that will be more challenged by AI. So we're sticking to our focus, which is on the most important music ever created.
Right. So we talk about value a lot. So I kind of want to go back to that point. What is value in the music business? I do want to hear it from you too.
It's not just value, it's value creation.
You have to create it.
You have to create the value.
Okay. It's not inherently there.
Anybody can go and pay 30 or 40% more for a catalog than we do, right? And if you do that, which the competition tries to do, because people are desperate, some people are very desperate to put money out. We're not, because we have so much deal flow because of what we are offering. But if you do that and you overpay, you better have a platform that can market, that can enhance, that can grow. So an example of what we do to create value, and let me use Whitney Houston as an example. And this is public information. When we bought Whitney Houston's estate, when we bought a partnership interest in that estate, a 50% partnership interest 6 or 7 years ago, the entire estate was generating about $1.5 million a year. I mean, shockingly low. So what do? We look at the entire estate, we look at the opportunities, and we said, you know what? We have to get the discussion of Whitney back on track to the greatest voice of our time. So we went into her vault with her family, Pat Houston, Donna Houston, and we found a song called Higher Love that Whitney had recorded way back in 1990 at a charity event. One of our marketing guys had a relationship with Kygo and Kygo's management team, sent the version to Kygo, and in a very short period of time, a couple of days, got a remix back. We walked it in, Primory-Wave, walked it into RCA Records, played it for the promotion team. RCA loved it. They put it out on the radio. We marketed it. We did what we do from a digital perspective. And we had a #1 record 4 months later in multiple countries. That created an additional brand new copyright, a brand new revenue stream, value creation, and it sparked interest in the rest of Whitney's songs because kids like at the time, my teenage daughters were streaming Higher Love. Became Whitney's second biggest song of all time. It's over 1 billion streams now. We created that from nothing. And that, in turn, got people talking about Whitney Houston. And subsequently, we did a MAC cosmetic line. We did a Scent Beauty perfume line that was in Walmart stores. We've created numerous opportunities. We produced the Houston biographical film, something that was incredible, right? So that gives you an idea of what we do for value creation and value enhancement.
I'm a huge K-pop connoisseur, so I do want to talk a little bit about K-pop. As music IP investors, how do you view the K-pop market? Do you have any views?
We are very focused on growing our investment activities in emerging markets, right? So we've made a very important investment in Brazil, another very important investment in India. We've spent some great time in Korea, and we'd love to find the
Vietnam.
right partner. Vietnam is another place that we've recently closed, and we will be exposing the portfolio to that growth that's happening in those markets. And Korea is a fantastic market. We are making very good money in Korea without actually having invested in there yet, and I can talk a bit about that, but Larry will have some other thoughts on Korea.
I will tell you that for us, Korea is a very difficult market to invest in because I wouldn't invest in Dua Lipa. I wouldn't invest in The Weeknd. I wouldn't invest in pop culture artists today because it's brand new music.
Right.
Those catalogs historically will only begin to decline as these artists produce new music. That'll add to their catalog, but the older music is going to decline. That's what happens to new music. It comes off the radio. It streams less. There's less opportunities, just in synchronization licensing for those songs. So those songs decline in earnings. It's very hard for us to find appropriate investments to deliver the types of returns that our partners, our investors expect from us. That doesn't mean people aren't investing in Korean repertoire. It's just a different strategy than we have. We are very focused on delivering the appropriate returns.
So that's why it's a difficult market.
Very difficult. That doesn't mean that we're not in the market using our repertoire for covers, for samples, for interpolations. That's certainly Korea is certainly an important market, but it's very hard for us on the investment side in that market.
But you said that you were doing business in Korea without
Sure, let me
directly
give you an example. So
investing.
one of
Okay.
those 6 teams that I mentioned, spends all their time going to the leading artists of the day and saying, hey, it's so hard to create a hit. Why don't you start with a hit? And so what I'm going to give you now is an example. One of the assets that we own is a catalog of Nicky Chin, a very famous songwriter who wrote amazing songs, but wasn't a performer. But one of the songs that he wrote is this song here, which you'll recognize probably.
Wait, is this what I think it is?
You're going to hear what you think it is, but this is the original. This is Hey Mickey.
Oh, I know it from
Right.
the Bring It On.
Yes, exactly. So this is Hey Mickey. And what this became is, I'm sure, what you know, because you can really hear that beat,
Yeah, I mean,
is this here, right?
Game start.
Right?
yeah.
Okay. So this is
yeah,
one
아파트,
of
yeah.
one of the successes of our creative team.
Wait, you guys were behind
Yes,
this?
of course.
Oh no.
Yes, of course.
Wow.
You can't use somebody else's music without having a permission. And our team is proactive about making this happen. So they go to people like Bruno Mars and Kendrick Lamar and other artists and say, hey, why don't you use our music when you create new music? And so we own an interest in Apathé without having really put up any money, and that's wildly, wildly lucrative for our investors, right?
I'm sure it generated a lot of...
Yes. Yes.
A lot of income on, as Bill said, our Nicky Chin catalog.
Right. And didn't BTS of V do a
Yes,
crossover with...
yes,
Yeah.
yes. In fact, that was something that was very proactive on our part. Our digital team, and the benefit of having a large digital team, is they did a lot of research, found that V from BTS grew up with his family listening to Bing Crosby.
Right.
Actually singing Bing Crosby with his family in their family car. So we found this out. Our team contacted V and contacted his management and eventually worked it out where we convinced them, V, to duet with Bing Crosby on White Christmas. So there's a version of White Christmas that came out last year that's going to be a perennial streamer every Christmas, where I think well over 100 million streams. And so, again, it's creating new content. That's not what our independent competitors do.
Right. So you said Korea was a difficult market, but I feel like you guys are doing pretty well in the K-pop scene.
Difficult market to invest in.
Right.
Now, again, it's a great market if you want to invest in, new
Up-and-coming,
writers,
yeah.
new artists. When you're in the business we're in, which is a stable catalog and growing business, it's a very difficult market.
Blackstone, KKR, and Apollo now have entered the music IP space. What makes music rights so attractive to institutional investors, do you think?
When I first, learned about this from Larry, I thought that this was very interesting because these assets, should be uncorrelated to other major risk factors, right? And I think what's happened over the past decade is we've been able to demonstrate with our track record that we can execute the strategy in such a way that it is uncorrelated to a lot of big things that happen in the world, like equity markets going down, interest rates going up, credit spreads going up. The whole COVID situation, which really was disruptive for almost all other asset classes. And that was really the catalyst for other large investors to come and take a look at this asset class because it was not as dislocated, but also because they figured out, oh, this is great, you can lever these assets. And that's obviously wonderful, right? So they got very interested in this. And I think what's been transparent so far after that, it's a lot harder to do this than people think, right? And, one of the things that I think is so interesting is that we've been able to deliver very steady income growth in all of our funds in a way that we haven't seen anybody else really be able to do. Certainly from the credit side, there's been a lot of interest in the asset class. And it's very similar to the same reason that there's a lot of interest in our strategy, right? We just raised the largest fund ever raised in the space, $2.2+ billion. And the answer is that that's possible because there are enough investors out there that realize, wait a minute, my entire portfolio just got very correlated to a bunch of risks, whether it's geopolitical risk or environmental risk or interest rate risk or equity risk, whereas these assets, properly managed, are not really subject to those same risks. And that's true for the credit side as well. So if you're a lender and you look at your portfolio and say, wow, I think I have enough office exposure, maybe I should get some music IP exposure, right? And that's also happening on the equity side. On the equity side, that's why we have major pension funds saying to us, not only do we want to be a big investor in your fund 4, but we'd like to have a lot more of this in our portfolio over time because it's not correlated, because it delivers growth, income, and it's inflation positive. Very interesting point, right? Inflation positive because when Spotify raises prices, that's like an instantaneous price increase for all of our assets because Spotify is going to pay roughly 70 cents of every dollar they collect to the people that own the music IP that they're distributing, right? Which includes us, the artists, the songwriters, etc.
There's a lot of attention to, acquiring music rights and investing in music IPs. The bidding war for Hypnosis Songs Fund was one of the biggest stories in music IP history last year. So what did that mean for the whole industry?
it's frankly no different than any of the other larger transactions that took place this year. We just last week closed a $1.5 billion acquisition of Cobalt. Anthem Music sold, for a substantial. There have been quite a few transactions in the business. We don't believe, by the way, in the portfolio acquisition strategy that many of our competitors are pursuing. We actually think that that is a recipe for lower returns. And the reason is very simple. When you're buying portfolios, you're buying, in general, it's hard to find really good assets. We are only in the icon business. We're only in the AAA level asset business. Our catalog is very, very different than most of the rest of the business. So, when you're buying a catalog, you're buying a lot of junk, a lot of artists or songs you've never heard of or you can't market.
Like B tracks, right?
Right, exactly. So we curate our acquisitions. We buy Bob Marley, we buy Prince, we buy artists that are the greatest of the great individually that we know that we can generate mid to high teen returns, that we can double or triple the income stream over 7 or 8 years to deliver those returns. It's very hard to do that when you're buying a portfolio of assets you can't market or you can't create opportunity from. Then you have to rely on luck or you have to rely on a rising market, and that's never really a good strategy. But frankly, that's the strategy of most of the business. That's why we're so unique in our ability to deliver for our investors.
So let's talk about the fundraising part, right? Over $2 billion, right? And I heard that you had no trouble raising the fund, which is more to say, when you come to like how difficult it is to raise funds, right, these days. So how do you plan to use this capital?
Well, the interesting thing there is that, our strategy has been remarkably consistent, right? Ever since Larry started the business, we've always been, focused on getting the best assets, right? But also ones where we think that we have a high level of confidence in being able to grow, and that has worked very well. And Cobalt is actually a very interesting investment because in some ways it's very similar to a catalog. The company owns music IP, invests in music IP, but their business is one which they are administering music publishing for a very large audience of clients, 3,500 plus clients. So every day, those new clients that they have and existing clients are issuing new music. So their income is going to, we think, grow almost, more than we would expect a typical catalog investment to grow. And their EBITDA is going to grow much higher than that. And we think that we can provide a lot of synergies to help them grow, even more successfully in the future. So the answer is we're sticking to the same strategy, and it's really focused on, the best music that we can move the needle on.
Right. So my last question is, what advice do you have for people who are willing to invest in music IP?
Well, advice that I would give investors, very simple. One, you need to make sure that the people you're investing in are aligned with you and are putting up a substantial amount of their own capital as well. Because a lot of the failures in the business that you've read about or have happened or will happen is a result of misalignment. So we are investing a substantial piece of our own money, our firm's money, into our funds alongside our investors because we believe that the opportunity is to create additional equity value. A lot of people are just pulling management fees out of business, and that doesn't create an alignment with investors. And the other piece of advice is do your diligence when you're investing, because it's not just somebody that says, oh, I have relationships in the business. Well, anybody can buy assets if you're paying enough money. The key is, how do you deliver a return?
All right, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to wrap this interview up and go listen to 아파트.
There you go. Excellent.
네, 누구도 주목하지 않았던 시절 음악 저작권의 가치를 가장 먼저 알아본 프라이머리웨이브. 이제는 전설적인 아티스트들의 유산을 가지고 지키고 키우고 음악이 자산이 되는 시대를 이끌고 있습니다. 자, 두 분과의 이야기는 오늘 여기까지입니다. 시청해주신 여러분 고맙습니다. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.